Okay, so in the last video we cleaned up the data, and so in this video we're going to insert it, and then we are going to have to remove our lunches, breaks, and downtime information, which is why we had to separate the date and the time, and that'll all come clear here in a few moments. So to select the entire table, so if you can click anywhere on the table and then hit Control A, and it selects the entire table, and you can right click and hit copy, or I like to go Control C, and so you can see that it's been it's ready to copy. It's already copied the data because you can see that this dashed line surrounds all of it. And so now I'm going to go to my analytics Excel file, and I'm going to make sure that I'm on the All Alarms tab, and I'm going to scroll all the way down to the very bottom of where the data is at. Sorry, I went too far. I'm going to click on the very next cell that's after, you can see April 15th right there, and then I'm going to hit Control V, and it's going to drop it all in. It's not going to be centered up with the rest of the data, so if you'd like to do that, you can scroll across the top, hit the center button twice, and it lines everything up. If you want it to look nice and neat, which I prefer it that way. And then you can see that we've got to, we're missing some information over here on the right, some data, right? So the easiest way to do that is to simply click and hold, left click and hold the outbound, move this all the way over, and then you're going to place the mouse over the bottom right side of that cell until you see the plus sign come up, the solid plus. And you're going to double click on that, and it's going to fill in all of this VLOOKUP information all the way down the table. So here we go, double click. So you can see now, if I scroll down, we've got all of this now 4,300 lines of information is all now filled in. Okay, so we're going to have some issues to contend with, not the least of which is getting rid of the times in our break times for both inbound and outbound, as well as our breaks. Our breaks or lunches and our downtime windows. So the first thing we do is come up here to Process and select Inbound. And since we've already done the previous weeks, there's no need to look through that data again. So scroll over, and now you're going to want to select week 16, which is what we just inserted. It may be, of course, different for you as you start collecting your data and inserting it, but so collect that. You're just going to select that last bit of data that you just dropped in, hit the OK button, and now everything is sorted for week 16 and for inbound. It's filtered, rather. And so then we want to go over here to the time column, and we want to sort the data from I believe it's smallest to largest, but we'll try a couple of ways. But we want midnight on top, so 12 a.m. is what we want on top. So I was wrong. So we want to go smallest to largest, and so there we have it. So it is now filtered here on the right hand side, and it's now sorted from midnight a.m. If you scroll all the way down to the bottom of the page, you can see 11:54 p.m., which is the last alarm that happened on the 17th of April. So the date is immaterial in this case, because what we want to do is extract or delete those records that are associated with lunches, with breaks, and with downtime windows, because if we leave that in, then we're going to have skewed data. It's going to include jams, motor faults, and so forth that were associated with those periods of downtime, and that's not going to necessarily be correct. And so the easiest way to do that is to have it done automatically. So Excel has got some weird ways that it uses to, well, it's not weird, I suppose, if you understand it, that it uses to determine time. It's a very long decimal format, And I will get to the point where this is automated, but for now, I'm going to show you how to do this manually, and it does take a little bit of time and a little bit of patience, but it's not too terribly bad. So again, we've got this filtered and ready to go, and we want to go over to the lookups tab and click on that, and I've got the times here for shifts and breaks. You can see this first table over here has got it set out. So the break number 2 starts at 1:59 a.m. So for inbound is what we're focusing on for the moment. So it's going to we're going to have to find those rows that go from 1:59 a.m. to 2:69, or excuse me, 2:16 a.m. So you might say, well, wait a minute, that's not 15 minutes, that's 17 minutes. Why did you do that? So I decided to go a minute before and a minute after because there were times where I found that operations would sometimes go to break just a tad early, associates would, and other times where they would start just a tad late. So just to rule out some potentially misleading information, we're gonna pull out a minute on each side. So you'll see that 4:29 to 7:01, that's the downtime window for inbound. 9:14 to 9:31 is their first break, followed by their lunch at 11:14, their next break, their second break at 2:29, and then finally end of shift at 5:29, and then inbound doesn't start back up again for another half an hour. And then their first break is at 8:14 to 8:31, and then finally their lunch goes from 10:14 to 10:46. So that all boils down to one full day for inbound. So again, I like to highlight my cells just to remember what I'm looking at when I go back into my all alarms tab. So I know that I need to find and delete those rows that are from 1:59 to 2:16. So we go back in, and we're going to scroll down. So 1:59 to 2:16, so 2:01, and so I go ahead, and if it's got 2:16 in it or 1:59, I go ahead and delete it. So I select those rows, right click, hit delete row, and there you have it. So we'll go through a couple more of these. It's not necessary to go through them all, excuse me, but we'll go through a few of these just so you get the hang of it. Lookups, come back, 4:29 to 7:01, come back to all alarms, 4:29 to 7:01, 7:01. You can see 7:07 is next, and 4:19 is before. So everything in between gets deleted. Back to lookups, 9:14 to 9:31 a.m. 9:14 to 9:31. 9:14 to 9:31, so just 3 rows this time. Back to lookups, 11:14 to 11:46. This will be the last one that I demonstrate. 11:14 to 11:46. 11:14 to 11:46, so just 4 rows. Okay, so now you got the idea. So we've got to remember, go back up here, and so now we want to do the same thing for outbound. So we will unselect it and reselect outbound, and so there you have it. It's still filtered now for outbound, and it's still sorted. So we just got to go back to lookups, and we'll bounce back over here. We'll take the first one for outbound. So it's 2:29 a.m. to 2:46 a.m. 2:29 to 2:46. Well, I guess that is not sorted. Let's try that again. There we go. 2:29. I'll go back to lookups just to make sure. So 2:29 to 2:46. 2:29 to 2:46. 2:29 right here to 2:46, and delete. Again, I will get to the point where I've got a friend of mine who's helping me out with a formula So we'll get to the point where we'll be able to filter this out automatically. You just drop the data in, and that'll be it, pretty much. It'll greatly reduce the amount of time that you have to do time spent doing this. Okay, so let's go back up. So you're going to go through, again, back to the lookups. You're going to go through and do that for every single one of these times, these breaks, okay? And then once you're done with that, you're going to go back to the all alarms, and we're going to have some problems here because we're likely to have some NA fields. So what this does is that it looks, these VLOOKUP formulas, so you can see that this is a VLOOKUP formula, so it's looking in this this particular table here for a cabinet, and then it's going over to our lookup tab, and it's looking for information that goes from source to type. So it's basically filling in what the type of fault it is, or warning it is, and there are a whole lot of types here. There's probably, I don't know, just guessing here, 30, maybe 35 different types of faults, and then each one of these sources is a code that equates to one of these types. And so I've taken a sort of educated guess on the meaning of it based on what the alarm says. So an oversized tote is not necessarily a jam. It's an oversized tote or debris. Well, I don't want to indicate that it's a jam because it may not be a jam. It's more likely to be an oversized tote or debris on the line. So when we go back over here, if we were to publish this data as it is, it's looking for these sources and the cabinets and the descriptions, and it's trying to enter a type in here. Well, if it says NA, well, that's not going to do us a whole lot of good when we're back to our main page trying to figure out what we want to look for. NA doesn't tell us anything, because when we're really trying to filter and drill down into the data, we want to use layman's terms, and we want to kind of drill down into things that are familiar, like jams, photo eyes that are blocked, anti-gridlock modes, and et cetera, et cetera. So we're going to unselect everything over here. We're going to come right back down to NA, and we're going to just select the NA, because that means we've got a problem with the VLOOKUP. And so here we go. We've identified that we do have indeed one problem here. So it doesn't know what type this is because it doesn't recognize this fault. Well, this fault just happens to be associated with the shipping sorter SLAP monitor fault. So I'm going to copy this source. So I'm going to hit Control-C, and I'm going to go back to lookups, and I'm going to go up underneath source. I'm going to scroll all the way down to the end of my source, which is a lot. There's a lot of codes, and I'm going to drop that value. I'm going to drop that value in here at on the very last one. So Control-V puts it in there, and so you can see there so far. After 9 weeks of collecting data, there's been 2,843 or so faults that I've uncovered in Dematic. There may be a list out there, and it may be, it gives us the code and then the layman's term for the type of problem that it is. But for now, this is what I've had to resort to try to sort our data out so it makes sense to most of us. Anyways, the CSS guys would probably make, they could tell you right away. But in any case, so we know that this is a SLAP monitor fault. So if I start typing it in, it's been identified before, or this kind of fault has happened previously. So it'll automatically fill it in. So hit the enter button. And then if I go back to my all alarms, and I should be able to now go over to, you can see that this no longer says NA. Now it says SLAP monitor fault, which is what we wanted to do. So I'll get rid of all of my once you're done removing all of those NAs, you're going to go back and clear up all of these filters. There's a couple of ways to do that, of course. And then I typically sort it by oldest to newest. And that is a wrap, and I will see you in the next video.